Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzo.
Today we're going to talk about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. But before we get into that, I actually wanted to... we got a couple of reviews on iTunes that I would like to read and thank our listeners for. One is pretty good, the other one is not as good. But that's okay. We welcome the feedback. It's what we asked for, right? This one is from, he's got a lot of numbers in his name, Ben248724. And he titled his review, And he says, you guys somewhat forced me to tune out of a couple of comments, such as one of you guys not knowing the Netflix format during the Daredevil discussion. Quote, and it said all the episodes will be released at the same time. End quote. Come on, bro. That shouldn't be a part of the discussion. Also, saying you don't know something before you're about to talk about it is the surest way to get me to turn you off. Quote, I didn't read the Civil War storyline, but I know Spider-Man is an important part of that. End quote. Why would I listen to you talk about it if you don't know what it is and freely admit to it? A lot of potential to be a decent podcast, but just a lot of stuff that needs to be polished up on. So, appreciate the feedback, Ben. And I understand, I guess, where you're coming from. I think to the Netflix thing, I didn't remember.
Yeah, that was me.
That's, and I think that was maybe just, I feel like you knew that Netflix puts all their episodes up at one time. Maybe you just had like a little... I
had actually forgotten, because I don't watch a lot of Netflix originals. Sure. And you brought that up, and I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, whatever. That's fine. The Civil War thing about Spider-Man, I think, just to give our side of it, I guess, is this I've always felt has been more of a movie podcast than anything.
Absolutely. And
John and I are comic book lovers, but I don't read comics anymore, really. It's just almost too expensive of a habit, and I just can't afford to go buy comics every week, and so... I've missed out on a lot of storylines, including the Civil War storyline. I remember when Civil War was going on, but I never read it. And so I think, at least I let you know that I don't know about the storyline.
Not to mention, we weren't really talking about Civil War as much as the fact that they were going to be probably going in that direction with the
Spider-Man.
New Marvel movies.
Right. Spider-Man. So, but anyway, that's okay. But yeah, even though our name is Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies, we're primarily just a movie podcast, and I think that's what we were talking about was the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so, but I understand.
We lean more towards superhero movies,
right?
But we're not solely superhero movies.
Right.
We pick a lot of the movies that are just kind of geeky movies, like for instance, we did Ghostbusters. Right. We're doing Star Wars right
today. Now. Star Trek last time. So,
so
moving on. The next review is from Trisket1818, and their title was "Great Stuff," but he or she, I actually don't know, wrote an amazing podcast. These guys are relatable, fun, and I take their opinions highly. The mini reviews and countdowns are also a great way in between the reviews. The only problem is there aren't any new episodes in over a month. Nonetheless, I hope they continue to make this podcast because it's a great thing they got going. Appreciate that, and consistency is always something we've struggled with. So I definitely understand.
Especially in the beginning of each year.
Yeah. Right, and that's when John is the busiest, and so it is tough for us to get our schedules in line and put out stuff we try to, that's why we're actually a bi-weekly podcast, because we knew from the get-go that doing it every week would be nearly impossible. And so we actually try to record every week, it just doesn't happen. I definitely understand that complaint. And
good news is I'm not going to be busy after this week. That's when my busy season slows down. So,
but my busy season starts.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So we'll see. Hopefully we'll make it work. Obviously, we really enjoy doing the podcast, and so we obviously want to keep it going. And we don't have any, there's no plans to shut it down or anything anytime soon. So. As long as, we apologize that you guys might have to wait every now and again for a new episode, but new episodes will come out
We've got a lot. We have a long list to talk about.
We have a lot of movies to talk about. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think we should go ahead and jump right into this week's film, which is. I just want to say thanks again to the folks who are writing reviews on iTunes, good or bad. We appreciate the feedback, and feel free to leave a review and let us know what you think.
An honest review.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate that. Okay, so Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This film I remember seeing in the theater, and I actually loved it when it came out.
Interesting.
Now, having a little time, because I was a huge Star Wars nerd back then, I hadn't gotten into Star Trek yet, and Star Wars, I hate to admit this because I feel like I should have been a Star Wars nerd from birth, but I really didn't become a Star Wars nerd until the re-release.
Star Trek I gotcha.
Yeah, until the re-release of Star Wars movies in the late 90s. And because I saw them out of order,
That's when I got into them, too, was the special editions. Or right before. Because I got the VHS of the original release.
Yeah, the theatrical release.
And they had the thing at the beginning, and they were talking about before the movie played and before what's the guy, Leonard Moulton went on and did his little spiel about the movie.
Nice.
They had the little preview thing. They were talking about the original release, and they were one last time.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't really understand what was going on there, but
right.
And the thing that possibly got me into it, and it's actually probable, was that shortly before the re-release of the special editions, I had gone to Universal Studios, and they mentioned the re-release, and I had never really seen Star Wars before. I don't know why. My parents weren't really into that kind of thing, and a lot of the people that I find out are into Star Wars, their parents were into it as well.
Yeah.
That was not my case. So I actually had to find my way into it through friends, or a friend in particular later. And it was about the same time you were talking, so.
Yeah, and my parents, my mom and dad had seen Star Wars, and I remember we had a taped copy of Empire Strikes Back, it had been on TV, and my dad had taped it off TV or something, I think. But honestly, I remember the first Star Wars movie I saw was Return of the Jedi, and it was at a friend's house. And then I don't think I'd actually seen the original Star Wars all the way through until I saw it on the big screen in 97 or 98 or whatever it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
See, I actually had gone and rented them.
Oh,
but it was around that time, and I was Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi. But I'd maybe only seen them once or twice before I went and saw it in the theater.
And then of course, it was just... I was eating up everything Star Wars. And so the prequels came out very shortly after that, 99 for Episode 1, 2002 for Episode 2. So I was still eating up everything Star Wars. And so this came out, and the fact that, towards the end of the film, by the way, we're going to talk about the whole movie. If you haven't seen Attack of the Clones, check it out, because we're going to spoil it for you starting now. At the end of the film, when Yoda is fighting Count Dooku, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. So,
right. I think a lot of people were on board with you on that. I remember in the theater, because we saw it opening night, midnight release, in New York, by the way.
Oh, nice.
We were on a...
Class trip.
Class trip. It was right after 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And there was Ground Zero, and we went for it wasn't really a missionary trip, but it was kind of like a class trip up there, and we got to see it in a theater in New York. I don't remember which one it is, but it's one of the popular ones, but big ones. Anyway, I remember seeing that, and people, when Yoda got up there and started fighting with Dooku, they were just going crazy.
Pretty fun. I guess it ends on a fairly fun note, but watching it now, what is this, 13 years later? Not my favorite. I'll just say that.
I will say this. I felt like that for a long time. And this was probably the first time watching it. I've only seen this maybe a handful of times, by the way. But
yeah.
It didn't bother me near as much as it used to. Like, every time that scene would come on, I'd be like, oh, this is so lame. Mm-hmm. But I was kind of neutral to it this time. And it didn't last near as long as I remembered.
Really? I feel like the episode 1 drags more than this one does. This one's long.
I'm talking about the Yoda scene.
Oh.
With Dooku.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the movie as a whole. No, the Yoda scene I still kind of enjoyed just because of, because it's Yoda.
Gotcha.
But
I gotcha.
But the movie as a
that's
whole,
what I was saying was that whole scene even back then I just felt like it was very forced, and it just didn't look right to me. And I was like, I know Yoda's supposed to be a super Jedi master, but he comes wobbling on a cane.
Yeah, I think that.
And then all of a sudden, he's
that's
like
the part that always made me
flexible.
Laugh. Yeah. And then when he leaves, he's wobbling. He gets his cane and he wobbles back out.
Yeah,
which I think is great. I think it's cheap. I actually think that scene is, the impact or whatever, if you want to call it, of that scene is lessened by the next movie because he fights. I feel like he fights it more than once. It's been a long time since I've seen the episode 3 as well, but I know that Yoda has a fight scene or two in episode 3. And so I feel like they should have just let it be that one fight scene, and everybody would have been like, oh, that was awesome, and then not really. Right. But I guess he has to put up some sort of fight in episode 3. Well, we'll talk about that when we talk about episode 3.
Fair enough.
I want to say with this movie, right off the bat, I feel like you're in for a boring movie just based off the title crawl. I read it and I thought, man, that's got to be one of the more boring. That has to be, if not the most boring title crawl from the whole series. And so I decided after the movie was over, I popped in A New Hope and decided to read the title crawl for A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie that was ever released. And I actually wrote it down, and I'm going to read it to you. So okay. Star Wars, A New Hope, which at the time wasn't called A New Hope, it was just called Star Wars.
Right.
But it said, it is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil galactic empire. I feel like right off that sentence, I'm in. I'm like, this.
Absolutely,
this movie's cool.
It's the wording,
right? And then during the battle, Rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, which is in all capital letters, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy. Like, that's just awesome. Like, it tells you everything you need to know. It tells you about the Death Star, the evil galactic empire, Princess Leia. It's awesome.
Yep.
Here's Star Wars Episode 2's crawl. There is unrest in the Galactic Senate. That's the first sentence. And you're just like, snooze.
There's fair enough, go on.
Several thousand solar systems have declared their intentions to leave the Republic. The separatist movement under the leadership of the mysterious Count Dooku has made it difficult for the limited number of Jedi Knights to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. Senator Amidala, the former Queen of Naboo, is returning to the Galactic Senate to vote on the critical issue of creating an army of the Republic, in all capital letters, to assist the overwhelmed Jedi.
Yeah, that's it?
That's it.
That's pretty awful. That's pretty awful.
It's not good. It's
no.
Not good. It does not scream, this is an exciting movie you guys are about to watch.
You basically get that the Jedi are overwhelmed. That's about
the
as much.
Jedi are tired, and Senator Amidala is about to go vote on something. And so it's like a lot of politics and tired Jedi. This is going to be a great film. That's exactly what I want out of my science fiction.
And it doesn't even open up with a battle.
No, it doesn't. It just is her ship landing on that planet, which I forget.
Getting ready to go vote?
Yeah, getting ready to go vote. And then, of course, I mean, then it has a little bit of, I wouldn't call it action, but there, her ship gets blown up and everything. There's a little intrigue, I guess you could say, but not really. And that's part of the problem with a lot of these prequels too is that there's not a lot of mystery to them because we know that Senator Palpatine is the bad guy behind it all, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we know who's trying to kill Amidala, and we know that his intentions are bad and all that stuff. So there's just not a lot of. It's part of the problem with prequels in general. I'm always impressed when a prequel surprises me because you can't kill off people in prequels. If they're going to be or if they were in the main movie, then Anakin's not going to die. Obi-Wan's not going to die.
Yeah.
So,
what's a prequel that has impressed you?
Star Trek. The Abrams Star Trek, and that's because they did that whole timeline, alternate timeline thing, with the time travel and all that, killing off Kirk's dad. And from the get go, they're like, anything can happen in this one, even though they're not going to kill Kirk and Spock and all that. But another prequel, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but prequels usually don't get me very excited in general, I guess.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And it kind of looks like that's what they're doing with the new Terminator, I don't know if that would really be considered a prequel or a sequel.
I think they're kind of going for the Abrams Star Trek style.
Yeah, they're doing a whole new alternate timeline thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I'm hoping that Terminator movie's good. But I feel like that's the only way you can do a prequel now. You got to do some alternate timeline so that you can kind of you don't have to stick to the rules of the original film or anything like that.
Right, which is going to become lame eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Every movie that does it it's going to become a cliche type thing.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of what they're going to be doing with these. I think the Star Wars branch movies.
Yeah, spin-offs.
They're doing. Yeah. Those are probably going to be prequel-esque as well.
Yeah, I'm very curious about them. I mean, the only one that we know of, or at least the only one we know the title of is Rogue One, right? Mm-hmm. Which I read that Disney and Paramount came to an agreement that Star Wars Rogue One would not do any advertising or marketing until after Mission Impossible Rogue Nation was released in July. Because of the similar titles, I guess. I don't
really weird.
I don't even know why. Because Rogue One's not supposed to come out until. Is it next year or is it 2000? Yeah, it's next year. I guess 2017. Yeah. So I guess they could have put out a teaser trailer before then. But I don't really see them doing a whole lot of marketing before July of this year anyway.
Right.
So I don't really know why they had to do that. But did you see that trailer, by the way, for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation?
No.
Looks pretty good. Looks pretty awesome.
Nice.
I'm excited about it.
Who's directing it?
Christopher McQuarrie, who directed Jack Reacher.
Okay.
And wrote, films like The Usual Suspects and
nice
Valkyrie and Jack Reacher and
Valkyrie was okay.
Other stuff.
Did you like Valkyrie?
I did like Valkyrie.
I thought it was a little slow.
I don't remember having an issue with its pace. I know a lot of people had issues with the, Tom Cruise has an American accent and all the other German soldiers have British accents and that, but that honestly never really bothered me at all.
Speaking of Tom Cruise, I didn't get to finish it, and I've seen it before, but I was showing my cousin The Last Samurai for the first time.
Oh, very nice.
It's a good movie if you haven't seen it.
It's a good one. I haven't seen that in a long time. I should rewatch it. It's a long one, though. I think 2.5 hours or something like that. I think that's why.
Yeah, it's kind of long.
I never pop it in. But I do have it. So anyway, back to Star Wars. So from the crawl, I feel like we're not in for a very exciting movie. This is also the film that introduced the world to Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
I remember not having too much of a problem with him when I saw this movie originally. And watching it now, I realize that he comes across very whiny in this film. And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think that I don't know. I don't want to go so far as to say he's like a bad actor, but I think it's a lot of the writing too. You know, he's got a lot of lines where he's constantly being like, "It's not fair," and so
Right. I think it's kind of forced on him.
yeah,
I've noticed that all three of the movies kind of have this very drab feel to the acting. It's almost like they're robots to an
told
extent.
not to emote as much.
Yeah. If you just listen to the responses, especially Natalie Portman, which we know she's not a bad actress,
Right.
and it just Liam Neeson back in episode 1, Ewan McGregor in this one and the first one. It seems like he tries to do a little better in this. I don't know if it's something that maybe Lucas was telling them to do,
Possibly.
or if it was maybe just a. Of course, I was going to say if it's maybe a overwhelming feeling that the fact that they were doing Star Wars,
Right.
but I would figure by the episode 2,
Yeah.
you know, they would have gotten their knack for it, and
Right.
You
could say that about Hayden Christensen, but he's like really the only one because he's the only one new to the
yeah.
franchise, and he
But
was
I
a
find-
relatively unknown actor at the time. If you hadn't mentioned Natalie Portman's acting out of that, I would have wondered if maybe Lucas was giving notes to the actors portraying Jedis to play it that way. But since you included Natalie Portman into it, I don't think that would be the case.
She's really drab.
So,
Especially in
know.
episode 1. She's a little bit more emotional in this, but not too much. There's just so many lines where you're like, it's just like, there's nothing behind it. They're
Yeah.
just reading
They're
lines, but
phoning
they're,
it in.
Yeah, I mean, they're not reading lines, but they are.
Right.
It's just very odd how the characters come across.
Yeah, I know I had an issue with some of the writing too, not with just Anakin, but with it kind of drove me nuts how many times Obi-Wan, especially in the beginning of the film, was saying some version of my young Padawan or my young apprentice. He would say that after every line. Every time
Yeah.
he spoke to Anakin, he'd be like, blah 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 blah, my young Padawan. And it just felt so unnatural to me, and it just seemed like say it once is fine, but saying it so many times like he did, I was like, okay, Lucas, calm yourself.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it wasn't. And I think this is the only one out of the prequels. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure this is the only film out of the prequels that was co-written by Lucas and somebody else.
So he wrote the other ones by himself?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, this one was written by George Lucas and Jonathan Hales. And
Story was by George Lucas, though.
Story was by George Lucas, yes. Episode 1, solely written by George Lucas. Episode 3 also solely written by George Lucas. Yeah, so this prequel, this Attack of the Clones is the only prequel that had a co-writer, and I'll have to when we rewatch Episode 3, I'll have to see if the dialogue is as bad as it was in this film. But I thought that a lot of the dialogue in this film was not very good.
I had that experience with Hayden Christensen when I first watched the movie, or the first couple times I've seen it, where I felt like he was pretty much one of the worst things about the movie. But this viewing, I guess I was a little bit more lackadaisical with him.
Yeah, I think you just get used to him.
Yeah, I felt like there were some moments where I was okay with him.
I don't hate watching him. I have no problem with him most of the time. It's just every now and again he'll say a line either a certain way or like I said, he just comes across so whiny that it's more
Right.
I have a problem with the character than I do with him.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if maybe the fact that I was expecting that this time, that rewatching it, I was like, I guess that wasn't as bad as I remembered. So it kind of went up a little bit for me.
I gotcha.
That's not saying much, though. I'm not praising the movie at this point, but I think this viewing I enjoyed Attack of the Clones more this time than I ever have before.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
I think I disliked Attack of the Clones more this time than I ever have before. But I honestly haven't seen it in a long time. Like I may have watched it once when it came out on DVD, which would have probably been, I guess, in 2002 or 2003. And so I don't think I've honestly watched it since then. So it had been a long time since I had watched the movie, and I was, way more into it back then. I wrote a couple of notes though on some specific scenes. The first note I had was, Anakin and Obi-Wan show up to be, they're kind of watching out for Senator Amidala, and they're outside of her room while she's sleeping, and he says they're kind of using her as bait so that they can kind of catch whoever's trying to attack her. And those bug-type creatures go into her room, and they both sense it at the same time, and Anakin goes in there with his lightsaber, and I guess it's because he's a Jedi. This is a kind of a note that I just thought was, it's not really, it's very nitpicky. It's obviously not a huge deal, but it looks like he slices off her face. Like he gets that lightsaber so close to her face. I was like, man, you sure went in there guns a-blazing, basically, and like really came close to killing her. That was my first note. And then, of course, I feel like that scene that moment is followed up by an amazing moment where Obi-Wan does not even think twice and jumps out the window to grab onto that
Right.
droid, or whatever you want to call it, the probe.
Yeah.
Which I thought was awesome. That's like his shining moment in that movie.
Yeah, there's a few of those moments in it. It's cool to be able to see the creation of the Empire and not only just that, but all of the people that are watching it happen and they don't have a clue what's about to happen. That's kind of a fun part of the movie to see.
You're talking about like fans who have not seen the original trilogy?
No, I'm talking about the characters in the movie.
Oh, okay, I see.
That are like, I mean, they have a sense that something not good's happening, but they really don't know what's ahead.
Right, yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it, I suppose, and it's not how I approached the film when I watched it this time. Maybe if I had watched it with that in mind, maybe I could have had a different mindset, kind of like how I talked about watching Star Trek the Motion Picture as if no other Star Trek movies existed.
They kind of spoon feed that to you a little bit, when you first see I think it's Palpatine and either probably some other Senate members when they're seeing the clone army for the first time and you hear the Empire music. And you're like, this is the beginning.
Yeah.
And it all started for quote unquote good.
Yeah.
And then, you later on in the movie, you have Yoda coming in with the clone troopers.
Right.
And he has, little does he know that they're going to later be taking over the galaxy.
Yeah. Speaking of the clone troopers, what do you think in general of Jango Fett in this film?
I didn't like him for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not a big fan of Boba Fett, the way they did him.
Okay. I thought you meant Boba Fett the character, and I was like,
no,
whoa.
I love Boba Fett. I feel like this was sort of a cop-out for Boba Fett. It's like, well, we can't have Boba Fett in it, let's throw in his dad and have him wear the exact same armor except it's a different color.
Yep. And I honestly think, Boba Fett's barely in Empire Strikes Back, and he's kind of barely in Return of the Jedi, but he became this like really big character that people loved. And so I think George Lucas was like, well, people really like Boba Fett. He's like, maybe I'll just have it be his dad in this film, like you said, and he'll wear the exact same costume and all that. It'll just be different colors. I felt the exact same way. I felt like Jango Fett was, on one hand, it's like, oh, cool, we're kind of getting a little extra Boba Fett.
Right.
But on the other hand, he has the exact same ship, too, doesn't he?
Yep, Slave One.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess his Boba could inherit the ship from his dad, but I don't know, it just seems weird. It was kind of I don't know how I feel about Boba Fett being a clone either, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not really his son, it's a clone of himself.
Yeah, it would have been a lot cooler if it was just like an actual son.
Right. So that was kind of weird. And yeah, I don't know. his character, like, there's a kind of a cool fight scene on that planet where the clone army is being built, which I watched this movie a couple weeks ago, so I'm not going to remember any of the planet names. But there was that fight scene was kind of neat. But then he gets killed off, like, I feel really quickly at the end on that other planet
when he gets
by Mace Windu.
decapitated.
Yeah. So I felt like he was just kind of thrown in the film. I mean, they needed somebody to base the clone troopers off of, I suppose. But I don't know.
That moment shocked me again, though. I forgot what happens to him, and then Mace Windu goes up, and it's just like, head, no head. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. That was. I remember liking that scene in the, when I saw it originally as well. And I liked that character back when I saw it originally, but I just feel like now it's just kind of, it's a Boba Fett cop out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that armor is, I can't remember if they mention where Jango Fett got the armor from. Do they mention that?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
It's Mandalorian armor. At least that's, if you play, well, I've tried to get you to play it, Knights of the Old Republic. In that game, they mention the Mandalorian armor, and it's like this group of people on another planet that were like basically warriors.
Gotcha. And
that's the armor that Boba Fett wears.
Oh, okay.
So, being that it's the same armor that Jango Fett wears, I'm assuming...
Probably Mandalorian.
Yeah.
This was the first time Yoda was an all-digital creation. Because in Episode 1, even though now if you watch Episode 1, he's a digital creation, but when Episode 1 was released in theaters, he was a puppet. So this is actually the first time Yoda was 100% CGI. And...
which I'm disappointed with.
Yeah, it's...
I like puppets.
Yeah. There's just something about, having an actual thing on set. It's like if... Like, the new Jurassic World, I don't know if they did this or not, but I doubt they built, the T-Rex head like they did for the original Jurassic Park. If they did, then that's awesome. But if, I'm assuming that the T-Rex and the D-Rex or whatever it's called, the mutated or whatever.
Did
dinosaur.
You make up that name, or is that actually a name that's floating around?
It's like Dominus Rex. Yeah, it's like D-Rex.
Oh,
yeah.
No. I haven't heard this.
I think so. Anyway, I'm pretty sure those are all going to be 100% CGI. And it'll be fine. We'll enjoy the movie probably, hopefully. But there is something that really brings the movie, I think, closer to a reality, I would say, when there's something... Because you can usually tell the difference between a CGI creature and a animatronic.
Yeah, we've been over this a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't have to go over it again, but yeah, I agree with you. It's a little disappointing when Yoda is 100% CG, which is how he is in Episode 2 and 3.
Like I said, I was disappointed with that. I've never been... It's not that I don't like Yoda. I do, but I really don't like him outside of the original trilogy.
Right.
I liked him just being kind of that hermit, know-it-all guy that you didn't see that much.
Right.
And then in these movies, he's one of the main characters, which I understand because Yoda is has a huge fan base.
Sure.
Even with the original movies. So once again, kind of like Jango Fett, let's put him in it, but... And he makes a lot more sense.
He does make a lot more sense. He's part of the, I don't know if... Forgive me for not knowing Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi by heart, but I don't remember if he says, if he was once a part of, like, the Jedi Council or anything like that. So, but he does, I feel like he was there for the Clone Wars and things like that. I think he talked about that at least or something, or knowing Obi-Wan and knowing his father. And so... he does have a place, at least in the prequels, but he is given a major part for sure. Whereas in Empire and Return of the Jedi, he's got a very important part, but it's a minor part.
Right.
So I can definitely agree with that. Yoda, for me, was always my favorite character out of the original trilogy, and I remember getting into conversations with people in high school about people didn't understand why he was my favorite character. Like, he doesn't do anything. And I was like, excuse me, he trains Luke Skywalker. So seeing him in this film, I thought was kind of almost validating my my choice of favorite character, because he actually does some stuff in this film, you know. But you're right. I think Yoda might work better when he's not a main character, when he's not right at the forefront like that. I mean, I like Yoda. He's still probably one of my favorite characters. But yeah, I can get what you're saying. One of my issues with one of the characters is another note I wrote, and it kind of has to do with Yoda, because he goes to see Yoda about it. But Obi-Wan can't figure out why there's a planet missing from the archives, and he goes to see Yoda, and a child, says someone deleted it out of the archives, and they're like, very good. And I was like, Obi-Wan couldn't figure that out on his own? That somebody probably deleted it from the archives?
Yeah.
That seemed like a little... I was like, do we really need this scene with the kids and, having the kids explain it to
That's a good
Obi-Wan?
point. Yoda says, I don't remember word for word, but he's like, basically the mind of a child is a great thing.
Yeah.
But, I kind of like that, but I totally know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, we didn't need that.
Right, you could have used that same scene somewhere else, or made it for something a little bit more difficult to figure out. Like, I feel like it's pretty obvious that somebody is hiding something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that I kind of rolled my eyes at. What do you think about how do you feel about the arena scene towards
I
the
was
end
just
of the film?
thinking about that.
Yeah.
No, I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
It's the bugs.
Yeah. Again, I never really had an issue with it before, but watching it this time around, like, I really kind of started to lose interest in the film around that point, if I hadn't already. I really lose interest in the film during the whole frolicking in the field, rolling around scene. That stuff, ugh. So bad.
It's a bit forced.
It's a bit forced. But this part of the movie, I kind of tune out to for whatever reason. It's not that exciting. And this time around, it actually reminded me of something, which I understand this movie came out first, but I wonder if it was influenced by the book. And did you see John Carter?
No.
There was something about it this time around, and I've only seen John Carter once, which is actually surprisingly pretty good.
Is that the movie about Mars?
Yes. It's originally called John Carter of Mars, I think.
Right.
I think was the original title. But it's based off Edgar Rice Burroughs' book, A Princess of Mars, I think, which was written a long time ago. That's the guy that created Tarzan, I believe. And so I wonder if George Lucas was kind of giving an homage to something from that book. Because that's what it kind of reminded me of. It reminded me of John Carter. Now, it's been, like I said, it's been a little while since I've seen John Carter, so I could be off. It just might have just kind of reminded me of it, and it has nothing to do with it at all. But I don't know where I was really going with that, other than to say that I don't like it as much now.
Okay. Well, I mean, what reminded you of it?
I mean, there's a similar. Like I said, I can't remember if it's in an arena or if it's just a similar scene. But in John Carter, I remember there's a scene where he's got like his arms are in chains and he's having to fight these kind of big monster type creatures. I don't know, I can't really remember if it's in an arena setting, but
that's not super uncommon. There's Planet vs. Hulk is like that, or Planet Hulk.
Sure,
is like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not it's not like a unique.
No, yeah,
scenario.
It wasn't like John Carter's the only one that had an arena setting with. Yeah, no, but for whatever reason, it just reminded me of it this time around.
I liked. There was one shot in that scene that I did like, and I could see where I think Lucas was just waiting for this. The one shot where the Jedi finally show up, and you see them all running with their lightsabers. Like, coming out.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is the best part of the scene, if not the movie, honestly. Because when they show up and they kind of come running in there, and you see for the first time ever, really, kind of a group or a team or an army of Jedi. That was pretty. That was exciting to see, and I still like that moment too. I agree with you.
I did like the whole scene with the mom when he comes back to her, and that's kind of a moving moment. She does die in his arms right when she's getting ready to say "I love you,"
right?
Which is kind of frustrating.
Convenient timing and everything.
Yeah, but he has a good facial expression in that scene, and the music goes really well with it.
Yeah, John Williams.
Right before he goes out and slaughters all the Tusken Raiders.
Right, and something I've never really paid attention to in that scene is right after that scene, like it cuts to, I think we see Yoda meditating or whatever, and you hear Qui-Gon Jinn's voice. I never thought about Qui-Gon Jinn or why we were hearing Qui-Gon Jinn, but I was doing some reading on IMDb, and supposedly that is supposed to be Qui-Gon Jinn's Force ghost trying to communicate with Anakin, telling him not to kill the Tusken Raiders. I wish we could have seen that. That would have been kind of cool if like Liam Neeson had like a cameo in the scene, as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
But supposedly, that's what I read, that it's supposed to be his Force ghost, like calling out to Anakin, telling him not to do it. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But that is But if you watch that scene again, like right when it cuts to Yoda, you hear Qui-Gon saying, no, Anakin, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting.
And I was going to say the scene shortly after that, when he's explaining to Padme, I slaughtered them. Yeah. But not just the men, but the women and the children. And I'm like, how is she still interested in this guy?
Right. There's a few times I asked myself that question during this film. Yeah. When he's like throwing stuff, he's like, it's not fair. I thought of it that time too. I was like, why? Okay. He's showing that he's a little immature. And she's clearly like 10 years older than him.
How old is he supposed to be? Yeah, no kidding. Based on I don't know if she's supposed to be, like, when you look at their age difference in the first one, that's what it looks like.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if that's what Lucas intended. First of all, I mentioned to you a while ago I read The Phantom Menace, the book.
Yes.
I think he's a teenager in that one.
Oh, weird.
If not, like, 10?
Right. I could buy him as 10 years old. I don't know if I could buy him as 13 even. You know what I mean? Like, even if he's a 13-year-old teenager, I don't see that.
Right.
10-year-old, yes.
Well, no, I mean, they definitely put down his age in episode 1 for the movie based on the book. He's a lot younger in the movie than he was in the book. Right. And then I think in this one, I don't know if there was really supposed to be as much of a gap as they alluded to in the first one.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I read somewhere that somebody said, it's possible because Amidala and Anakin are both from different planets, that they're technically different species. And so her age, she might age slower than he ages type of thing, Even though that's never addressed in any of the films, and everybody seems to age the same amount, no matter what planet you're from. So, other than Yoda, I guess Yoda ages...
I'm just going to go ahead and say this. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't buy it either. I think that's somebody just trying to be like, well, maybe they're not that far apart in age. And you're like, no, it's really kind of gross. She's like 30 and he's like 15. It's the whole love aspect of Padme and Anakin in this film is 100% forced. I don't buy it at all. I don't know why she's interested in him. I understand why he's got a crush on her. I get that. But why she falls for him or like is interested in him, I never buy it.
Yeah.
Like even the scene where they're in the grass and stuff, and he's being
somewhat charming, perhaps.
Right. I still don't buy that she would fall for him. And then stick with him after he slaughters a bunch of Tusken Raiders, women and children and all.
Slaughter them like animals, and I hate them.
She's like, oh man, I love you so much right now. So yeah, I don't buy that.
So Count Dooku at the end. What were you wanting to say about that?
Count Dooku, played by Christopher Lee. An interesting choice, I would say, to play Count Dooku. It's interesting, Count Dooku is in the opening crawl. He's considered, they call him the mysterious Count Dooku, but he doesn't show up for like over an hour into the film.
Right.
And, other than being, I was going to say Palpatine's puppet, but that's not really the case. He's like, I guess at the time he's like Palpatine's right-hand man. It's just, he doesn't bring a whole lot to the film. I mean, I guess he's sort of moving the story along by trying to build the Empire behind the scenes and everything, but...
and they keep him around for the third one.
Yeah, they do. He's in the third movie, too.
I was thinking General Grievous was in this one.
Nope, that's the third one.
Obviously. But I was like really waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking he was a two-parter as well, but no.
Count, it's unfortunate. Like I thought, maybe it would have been a little easier to swallow if Count Dooku had been in the first film or something. I don't know, but like when we see Count Dooku and Anakin and Obi-Wan show up, and Anakin tries to fight him, and he shows off how powerful he is. Like, I don't know, I didn't feel as threatened by him this time around watching it as like I feel like I should have been.
Right.
And then, of course, you see him fight Yoda, which is awesome.
Like I said, this time it didn't bother me as much as it used to.
Right.
And it wasn't near as long. Like, I had memories of that scene lasting like 5 minutes.
Right. Which I'm curious, because I remember in episode 3, the Obi-Wan Anakin fight scene goes on for a really long time. So I'm curious if it feels really long this time around or if it feels, fine.
And that's a good scene.
Yeah, I remember liking that scene. I remember liking Revenge of the Sith more than any of the other prequels.
I agree.
I'm hoping I still enjoy it this time around whenever we watch it.
I was just thinking about this, too. Something that... the ships.
Yeah.
And something that's really got a lot of people excited, including myself, for the new movie, is seeing, a lot of the ships that we grew up with, the TIE
X-Wings,
Fighters, the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wings. This was kind of Lucas's, you can really tell it, each movie, where he's kind of like, let's just create ships, new ships that no one has ever seen.
Yeah.
And make like these list of ships.
Right.
Like a big catalog of ships. And I don't think a lot of people enjoyed that. You don't hear people talking about any of the old ships.
No.
Now, I've heard that the generation under us, they kind of like the prequels.
Really?
So I don't, I can't speak for them. They might know some of these ships, and identify with them and have, a warm spot in their heart for them. But
right.
Really, it's the old school ships that people like.
Yeah, and like you said, maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's because, I guess I don't know why, if your parents are Star Wars fans, why they would show you the prequels first. But maybe if you've seen the prequels first and you watch those films more than you have the original trilogy, I guess I could kind of see why you would maybe like the ships from this film more. But I can tell you, for me, I obviously prefer the ships from the original trilogy. I think the X-Wing looks awesome. And I went to Disneyland last year and rode Star Tours, which they updated a couple years ago. And was kind of disappointed. I rode it multiple times, and I actually became a bigger fan of it the second and third time I rode it, because the storyline actually kind of changes slightly. But the first time I rode it, it was like all prequel ships and like all prequel planets. It was like Naboo and I forget where some of the other places were. Tatooine might have been one, which is obviously not just a prequel planet. But it was like the yellow ship that Anakin gets in at the end of Episode 1 that we see a little bit in this movie too. Like there were a lot of those flying around, and I just remember being like, "What? I really wish it had been like TIE fighters and X-wings and stuff. I think that would have been a lot cooler." And then, of course, I think I wrote it again, and you get different. It's like 3 different scenes that can be pieced together in a different order. So depending on, which ride you get on, you'll see different scenes in a different order. And so I got a little more of the original trilogy the second time I wrote it, and so I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I like that now. But the first time I wrote it was like all prequel stuff, and I was like...
Right.
And so I was rather disappointed with that. But yeah, seeing the X-Wings in the new trailer, that part was awesome, where they're like right above the water. Yeah.
Yeah. And to see the TIE fighters coming in at the end, the Millennium Falcon, it's
so sweet.
But you've got those new things too. I mean, it's really just what did they call them? A speeder, but like the thing that girl jumps on. It's very odd looking.
Yeah, it is odd looking, but it it kind of fits within the universe, I think. And it's Lucas had created new ships for the Empire Strikes Back and for Return of the Jedi, like the speeder bikes. Those weren't in the first 2 movies. In Return of the Jedi, so that was something new we got, and that was cool. But yeah, for whatever reason, the prequel ships, I just don't feel like are as cool.
But that was kind of a different scene, because I mean, I like the pod racers.
That's true.
You actually get down on the level with the characters and are flying with them. But you've got like these orange ships that look like toilets, and you're just like, what? Okay, and you see it for like 5 seconds, and then you never see it again. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's true. I see what you're saying.
What was I going to say? Yeah, he did a really good job in Empire Strikes Back, introducing the Super Star Destroyer, which was cool.
Yeah,
but not much thought put into that. And that was a cool thing to see at the end of this movie. I was talking about earlier how you got to see when Palpatine's there looking at this was actually the same scene I was talking about, where he's overlooking the balcony and you see the clone troopers, and then you actually see the Star Destroyers.
You even see, is it this film?
Yes.
You even see the Death Star plan. Yep. Yeah, he pulls it up. Yeah. So there's a little wink at which is cool. I like that too. It also tells you how long it took them to build it, I suppose. This film also has kind of a little bit of a throwback to the very last shot of Empire Strikes Back, which is Luke and Leia and R2-D2 and C-3PO, like looking out the window of their spaceship that they're on right after he gets his new hand. And this one ends with Anakin with his new hand and Padme right after they get married, and R2-D2 and C-3PO standing there, kind of in a very similar fashion, I think.
We just got married. Take hold of my cold hand.
My cold metal hand.
I love you. I was going to say the little ball droid in the new trailer.
Yeah.
First time I saw that, first thought for half a second was, uh-oh. But I really liked it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you know this, but apparently that thing actually is real.
Oh, yeah?
Like, it actually moves.
Oh, that's cool.
Like that. And they're going to make toys based on this.
Nice.
So
I think it'll be fun to see what kind of new Star Wars toys come out for this film.
Yeah, I'm curious how that thing works.
I know J.J. Abrams, I think, approached Star Wars with wanting to have more practical sets and more practical effects than the prequels obviously did, and more so maybe even than Star Trek had.
Yeah, I believe so,
which is cool, and I think it's going to make the movie really.
Yeah, it's already pretty apparent that he's doing puppetry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I'm super stoked about.
I honestly, when the next trailer comes out, are you going to watch it, or are you going to try to avoid it?
I'm going to watch one more trailer.
One more trailer,
because,
and then after that, stop.
It's technically trailer 1.
Right, because this was a teaser.
Right.
Very true.
I'm going to watch that. It's supposed to have Luke, Leia, and Han in it. And then I know I'm saying this. I don't know how much I'll be able to actually do this, but I don't plan on watching any more footage after the first trailer.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably do the same thing. Because I think it's supposed to come out with Avengers, right? Star Wars is going to probably have a teaser or trailer in front of Avengers. I think that's what I read. I could be wrong, but makes sense because they're both Disney properties.
Yes, that does make a lot of sense. Yes.
I'll probably watch. So when I go see Avengers, I'll probably watch it if I don't see it on the internet before then. But I think I'm going to try to do the same thing after that. Any other footage that gets released, I'm going to try to avoid. It can be really hard, though, because when I didn't watch the Man of Steel trailers, man, I wanted to so bad. It was a struggle not to watch those Man of Steel trailers.
Those were some good ones, too.
Yeah, I know. I know that now. But I don't know if it necessarily... Because I only watched the teaser trailer for that, which really shows nothing. And I almost think it hurt my experience a little bit, because I had a movie in my brain of what I wanted it to be, almost, And then when I saw it, it was different, so I was like, oh. So I think if I had seen at least the first trailer, I could have gotten an idea of what Zack Snyder was kind of going to,
right?
How his style was going to really look.
And I think we've gotten that with Abrams on this, on this teaser.
Yeah.
And I like what I see.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of like what the prequels were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this looks like it's actually going to do it.
Yeah. So did a rating come into your mind after you're watching it this time?
Yes. It's gone down since I watched it.
Uh-huh.
I was kind of leaning towards 3.5 stars out of 5. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5 stars. I think I'm going to give it... I feel like as much as I've kind of been bashing it, I should be giving it a lower grade than what I'm about to give it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is still not the greatest grade, but I think it gets some points just for kind of being Star Wars and having those very few couple of scenes that
it has a few scenes that are kind of cool.
So I'm going to give it a C minus.
Okay.
So it's still pretty low, but it's not failing.
That's pretty low. That's getting in the D territory.
It's just slightly below average.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we'd love to hear what you think about Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. If you love it, please let us know why. If you hate it, let us know why. You can check us out at cinemaheroes.com. You can leave us a comment on any of the posts there, or you can go to facebook.com/SM and SM podcast, and you can like our page and comment there as much as you like. Or you can throw us a line on Twitter at cinemaheroes. So yeah, that's I think about wraps up this episode for Star Wars. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading.